Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Tuesday topic. Today's topic is Age-Friendly Drexel Champions 2022 Grantee Flash Talks. So without further ado, let me throw it over to Kate Clark to organize today's event. One quick thing, we are a little tight on time. We've got a lot of folks that are presenting today. So rather than taking questions as we go, if you have a question that you want to have answered, drop it into the chat and we will respond to those at the end when we have time. All right, thank you. Take it away, Kate.
Good afternoon. My name is Kate Clark, and I'm the Director of Strategic Initiatives at the College of Nursing and Health Professions. And I also manage the Age-Friendly Drexel Initiative for CNHP. And as Darren said, we have a really exciting and packed agenda. So I just wanted to briefly just give you a little background on Age-Friendly Drexel before we get started with our pilot grantees. Next slide. So Drexel is now an age-friendly university. And what does that mean? In 2019, Drexel joined this network of over 80 universities worldwide. And at that time, President Fry made a commitment to 10 principles, which I'm going to show you in a moment, that will really enable us to be more of a lifelong community. And by doing this, we'll be able to be more supportive of our current and retired faculty and staff, older students, alumni, community members nearby, and caregivers of all ages at our university, which is really all of our stakeholders, right? So the initiative is led by CNHP's AgeWell Collaboratory. That's our center without walls that houses all of our aging activities. And we are led by a steering committee of Drexel leadership and also our pilot grantees, who we see as the champions of our effort. Next slide. So what is the connection between the aging population and higher education? If you look at the top right graphic, you will see that today there are more people over the age of 65 than under the age of 5. And that has significant implications for higher education, say in terms of enrollment, but it's also an incredible opportunity for Drexel to really reimagine our campus as a lifelong community. And some of the examples are included in these bullets here: diversity, equity, inclusion. It's really exciting that age is now a component of our university's diversity and equity inclusion statement. Lifelong learning is another wonderful opportunity, supporting caregivers. And just a note here is that over a quarter of all family caregivers are actually millennials or Gen Z, which is much of our student population. Workforce development, opportunities around that for our graduates, but also for many other people, older adults coming back to school. And then lastly, older students and supporting our older students and looking at generational diversity. The next slide, please. I'm not going to go through all 10 principles. I'm going to put them in the chat, but you will see that they have to do with intergenerational learning, inclusion, career development, increasing access to our university, and more, and look at our retirement community. So I will post those in there because they're very important, and you'll see our pilot grantees reference these principles. Next slide. So off with our pilot grantees and our flash talks. In 2021, our Age-Friendly Drexel Steering Committee through the AgeWell Collaboratory funded 7 pilot grants. You will hear from 6 of them. One cannot make it. It's the Tech Ambassador Project from the Excite Center. And we can give you more information on that if you're interested. Just drop a line in the chat. But all 7 of their grantees address the 10 principles, which is incredibly exciting. Many address multiple principles. And you will see, if you go to the next slide, that 13 colleges and centers are represented in our pilot grantee cohort. And it's incredible because all are real champions, and they're spreading the word throughout the university of the importance of age friendliness and disrupting ageism. And with that, I'm going to introduce our first pilot grantee, and that's Dee Nicholas from Westphal.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dee Nicholas. I'm an associate professor and director of the MS in Design Research. And I'm received the grant for Age Friendly at Ross Commons with Rachel Wenrick, who's the founding director of Writers' Room and an associate teaching professor. We are really excited to be here and to be included in this cohort of grantees. The project is to create an age-friendly audit and set of materials related to aging in place and creative work in the Ross Commons facility, which is where Writers' Room is located. And Writers' Room is fantastic center on campus that has an intergenerational creative community that they've built. And Rachel and I have been working together on understanding, along with Dr. Alan Handy, who's a grantee on another project here, but working on understanding the issues in the Mantua community in terms of displacement. And this group actually meets regularly and does creative writing together, the Writers' Room group, the intergenerational Writers' Room group. And what's emerged is a new model for intergenerational creative space making, place making, and housing, which is called Second Story Collective. And can I have the next slide? So as part of our project, what we're looking to do is to engage that community in conversations about the ways that the Writers' Room space can serve them, and also to do an audit of the space in general. But as part of that, we're also interested in continuing to engage with the conversations around space and displacement and community as well. And so what you're seeing here is actually the 2022 Design Research Symposium. Kia Witherspoon and Sequoia Hunter Shuje came from Determined by Design, which is an interior design firm that is predicated on equity and access for all to high-level interior design services and design spaces. And the community had a conversation about equity, access, design. And so that's actually feeding into some of the work that we're doing as well, because there's constantly multiple engagements occurring with community through the Writers' Room group. So this is from their most recent book, Anthology 8, which they launched about 2 weeks ago. And it's a little section about the Design Research Symposium, because several people that are members of Writers' Room did an interview with Kia and Sequoia. And so that's now part of our repository of knowledge. Can I have the next slide, please? So currently what we're working on is exploratory resource collecting, the IRB, and surveying the site. We will be continuing with expert interviews and engaging with occupational therapists and interviewing assisted living providers that we're connected with. And community members as well. And then we'll be doing some participatory sessions in the winter, leading to analysis and recommendations in the spring. Can I have the next slide? So we've been looking at the age-friendly principles, the age-friendly university principles. And in addition to that, we've been building a repository of other resources and ways of looking at space from an intergenerational usage and intergenerational learning standpoint. And that all of the outcomes from this study are going to be part of the community guidebook that the larger group is producing for the community to use. We're also hoping that some of the things that we discover in terms of this audit of the Writers' Room space we'll be able to use across the university and other learning spaces. Can I have the next slide, please? So we're working with stakeholders, developing the report, and we're hoping to develop a model that can be used within Drexel and beyond to update campus spaces with age-friendly features. And that's what I have.
Thank you so much. And again, we'll be holding our questions till the end, but please add your questions to the chat now, and I will just be collecting them. Next up, we have Dr. June He from Westphal, who's presenting, and she's also working with Dr. Kay, who is at CNHP.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. My name is Jun He, and I'm assistant professor in product design from Westphal. And my partner is Kathy Quay. She's assistant clinical professor in the College of Nursing and Health Professions. And as you can see, our title is Intergenerational Community-Based Co-Design. We are connecting Drexel students with older Asian adults in Philadelphia. So our proposal in this fall is a course and a research study combined together. And we bring interdisciplinary students from Drexel University. This course is under Honors College, so we'll have a lot of students from different backgrounds joining us. And we bring them to the older Asian community in South Philly and the Chinatown area to work with the community members side by side using co-design methodologies. The goal and objective of this course for the students, we want them to meet a group of older adults, which in a regular time they would never have the opportunity to meet them, and they can open their horizon and be more empathic to see what kind of new life, new culture they encounter, because these older adults are mostly immigrants. So they bring a different set of languages and cultures, and the students bring their own culture and their learnings with them. So they can be mutual learning with each other and create student community engagement. And older adults can also benefit from intergenerational interactions and learn design, by the way, as well. So as you can see from these two pictures, these are the course I conducted this past spring. And we can see on each table, there were 2 students from different backgrounds and 1 older adult working with them. Some are using collaging, some are using drawing, painting to understand each other, to co-design a solution, which really help older adults in the community. Next slides, please. So these are some of the results from our co-create workshops. We have several series of workshops with students and older adults together. These are we called toolkit or trigger set students prepared for older adults with, for example, some of the collage materials. Students did secondary researches and did readings and pull out some images they think might be interesting for the older adults to bring out their stories, their lived experiences, their community histories to share with them. And by doing these collaborative co-creating sections, and students can understand more about older adults, because we know like a lot of immigrants, they actually don't speak English. So one of the greatest ways is using visual languages to understand each other than like only interview. Of course, we do some interviewing, but with the help of translators. But our main goal is to use visual elements to understand each other. Next slide, please. And this is another workshop we called cross-cultural co-design workshops. This is after several rounds of interactions with older adults, and the students and older adults kind of figure out what direction they want to go, what kind of solution they can bring to the table to help older adults in their everyday life. So for example, you can see some group of students, they use Lego as a media to create a public park with the older adults to understand what their needs are. And some other students, they brought some prototypes they made. These are the pieces of, actually they didn't make it, they made it together with the older adults, but they brought some materials and some elements they discussed together. So next slides, please. This part is for Kathy.
Thanks, June. Hi, everybody. I'm Kathy Quay. Thanks for having us. So just to add to the intergenerational mutual learning that June is bringing to this course, we also want to make sure that we are bringing some foundational knowledge to the students. So as a nurse with a background in geriatrics, I'll be bringing some of that and providing some of that foundational knowledge on the pathophysiology of aging, and then offering some perspective taking experiences and reflective activities that allow the students to explore their own perspectives preconceived ideas about aging, as well as their biases towards aging, so that we can have a really thoughtful, reflective conversation and evaluation of ageism in society and the effect that it has on our communities, so that we can help them begin to identify solutions for creating these age-friendly environments that we are really trying to create within and around Drexel. So thank you.
Next slide, please. Thank you, Kathy. And so in the end, we'll have a public-facing exhibition. This was the poster for the last semester, but we'll have open to all the people, to public. And one thing I want to add from this course is also certain components of it is also open to the aging population in Drexel, such as our alumni, our faculty members, so they can be part of the conversation as well. And at the same time, a quick note, we are looking for volunteers, for translators to help us facilitate the conversation. The language skill is Mandarin or Cantonese. If anyone here is interested in, or you think some of your students might be interested in, please let me know. I'll put my contact information later in the chat. Okay, thank you, everyone. That's it from our slides.
Thank you so much. I'm sure there will be questions. So exciting. Next up, we have Kina Sears-Brown from Goodwin.
Thank you, Kate. Good afternoon, everyone. As Kate said, I'm Kina Sears-Brown, Director of Continuing Professional Education and Workforce Initiatives at Goodwin College of Professional Studies, where I have the pleasure of serving adult learners who are in various career and life stages, connecting them to professional development workshops, certificates, and certifications to support their lifelong learning needs. Next slide, please. The segment of the adult population that are really seasoned and mature really aligns with our strategic plan at the University, Drexel Forward 2030. This strategic plan includes a focus on lifelong learning for adults. As one of the co-chairs of the Continuing Education and Lifelong Learning Initiatives team, I, along with many colleagues across Drexel, have formed advisory teams to think through best strategies and programming that meets, adult learners wherever they may be at every age and level of rich experience. So it's truly about building a culture of equity and inclusion and creating opportunity for all people to connect, engage, and share those lived experiences. Next slide, please. As you can see, there are many different learner personas connected to adult learners. We are seeing that, many adult learners over the age of 55 are re-entering the workforce. And so not only Goodwin, but Drexel as a whole needs to understand how to serve their current and future lifelong learning needs and connect those adults with new skills to become employable again or to upskill in place as needed. Next slide, please. So Life is Beautiful is the brainchild of Ken Bingham, who's the Associate Professor in College of Arts and Sciences and the recipient of the Age Friendly Grant. Ken currently offers the course to undergraduates who seek to interview important people to them, preserving their legacy for future generations. Now with this pilot grant, the course will be open to all in a non-credit course offering, Life is Beautiful 2.0. So now anyone who enrolls in the program will have the opportunity to chronicle the lives of someone important to them. Think someone who could be in hospice, or an older grandparent who has lived and seen so much history, or your mother who talks incessantly about family recipes and the generation of women who created them. Those kind of stories will now be preserved through this course. And Ken walks the students through that journey on how to document those experiences. So this is a true collaboration between many colleagues across the university, including alumni relations, of course, Ken and COAS and Graduate College, and of course, yours truly in Goodwin College, where this course will be housed in terms of registration. So right now, our team is working on the design and marketing, including a strategy to scale this pilot and create new programs that connect adult learners and generate sustainable revenue for the university through these kind of offerings. Next slide, please. So, as you can see that this proof of concept model really positions the university to align with age-friendly principles and to create innovative and meaningful content for older adults, who have various personal and professional stages and lived experiences. It definitely aligns with our goal to put diversity, equity, inclusion into practice by opening up communication and touch points for many different generations. And definitely an opportunity to connect and really engage with alums, retirees, faculty, and other community members. So I'm sure we'll be reaching out to the writers' room and other internal partners to get the course information out there to everyone. Next slide, please. So we are happy to say that our team has pretty much confirmed our first inaugural offering of this non-credit professional development course. Life is Beautiful 2.0 will have 5 sessions starting on Wednesday, October 19th. These are virtual sessions, as I said, that are open to all adult learners. And so we will be also having an information session on September 28th, kind of a test drive, where Ken will also walk people through the format and kind of get them thinking about who they'd like to interview and why. So if you are interested in being on the Life is Beautiful 2.0 mailing list, you can email goodwin.ce@drexel.edu. We'll put you on the mailing list so you can get alerts of when the course will be open for registration. And of course, if you'd like to collaborate, you can email me directly and I can put my information in the chat. I know that Ken is here, but for time's sake, if anyone has any questions, we'll be happy to answer them at the end. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Kina. Super exciting. Next up, we have Carrie Hudnick from the Lindy Center.
Hi, I'm Carrie. I'm representing our team. I was the only one who could make it today. So while our project is collaborative, I'll be speaking alone and doing my best to represent our work. But I was really grateful to hear about all the projects. I always love hearing about all these really wonderful projects, engaging. And our specific project is titled, it has a pretty long title, but it's Revealing and Reducing Invisible Boundaries, Conducting an Equity Audit of Access and Inclusion to Drexel Health, Wellness, and Recreation Programs for Older Adult Promise Neighborhood Members. And so our project is a collaboration that began with myself at the Lindy Center, Cameron Kiosoglos at the School of Education, who works in sports coaching and recreational programming, and Stephanie Smith-Budai in the School of Education, whose background is in community-based learning, specifically around community partnerships. And so the three of us began working together and identified a particular conversation around not just the work, and at the Lindy Center, a lot of the work we do is around facilitating and supporting courses, projects, students who take work at Drexel and go out into community. And I think a constant question we're asking a lot is how do we expand and enhance and increase pathways in for community members to have more participation and access to resources on campus and space on campus that are welcoming, inviting, and accessible to members of our local community. And Stephanie's background in equitable and justice-oriented partnerships between university and community, and Cam's background in recreational programming is, I think that all created this topic and this initiative that's centered on this question about what's being offered at Drexel that might be accessible to older adults in the West Philadelphia community. What kind of information or access do people know about or have to those programs? What interests do local residents have in recreational program that's not currently being offered or accessed? And what possibilities might be available to close those gaps? And so a lot of our questions began to develop into this project, and we were lucky enough to bring on Karina Escalante, who's a graduate student who has a significant experience working with the West Philadelphia community, working with community partners around research efforts and establishing relationships with community members that work in collaboration. And Julia Diggs, a resident of West Philadelphia, who was referred to us by the Civic Association in Mantua as our community consultant. And so So we developed this project in hopes to build on existing work. There's been work in the West Philadelphia Promise neighborhood to do health equity audits, to try and understand and utilize neighborhood surveyors to understand what kind of access to health services, health resources, and wellness resources that residents have, to engage community members in participation, not just through a community consultant, but also in interviews and focus groups, and bringing community members on in ways that make the most sense and are of interest, and to offer pathways for enhanced resources to strengthen relationships between resources and offices on campus at Drexel and community members who might be seeking those out. And the specific focus is on recreational programming for older adults, because they're a group of where recreation is a main source of socialization and participation. They're a group that not only Drexel resources might not be inherently tailored to, because they're created and offered to college students in that age range, and that also having these resources more available and intentionally accessible for community members would significantly contribute to Drexel living up to this call to be an age-friendly campus. And so we worked through and developed a set of research questions. And so if you can advance to the next slide. So our plan and our beginning stages are to engage in interviews with older adult community members as individuals, and then as also within focus groups to get a sense of what needs and interests exist within the neighborhood and within the community, in terms of recreational and wellness programming, what knowledge people have of programs or services that are currently being offered, and what ability and capacity do residents have to access what's currently being offered. And then on the Drexel end, we're hoping to talk to resources, programs, staff, and that work specifically in recreational programming, to understand what's currently being offered, how they approach outreach, how do they get information out about their programs, and what might they be willing and able to do to offer more access. And so we're hoping that the work that we do not only informs the offices and the residents to create more pathways and more space on campus that's accessible and open and inviting and welcoming, where older residents from the neighborhood can come and participate alongside staff and students at Drexel, and enhance that sense of like collective community participation, but also inform some new and ongoing initiatives at the university offices that are looking to enhance their services, and even in some of the new programming via the West Philadelphia Community Center as well. And next slide. This is just a picture of our team. We don't have a picture of Julia yet, but this is a bit of our timeline. We're currently in the midst of interviews and focus groups, planning to begin data collection, or continue with data collection. And this is nice pictures of our whole team. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're all very excited to see what you all come up with and being able to make those types of recommendations to university leadership. So it's exciting. The next presenter we have is Dr. Mcacron, and he'll be sharing his own screen.
Thank you. Let me see if I can get that set up properly. Okay, the research initiative is called Virtual Shoes, and it's a research initiative that will put all who participate in the shoes of older adults so that all of us can see what it is like to navigate through the world through the eyes and ears of an older adult. The idea is to design the world to better accommodate all of us as we age in place. This is a global research project between Drexel University and the Politecnico di Milan in Italy. And this is a cross-cutting interdisciplinary Drexel collaboration between faculty at numerous colleges. By the way, my name is Don Mcacron, and I am a teaching professor in the School of Biomedical Engineering, Science, and Health Systems. All right. So several of this team have been collaborating for the past 7 years with the Politecnico di Milano on a research initiative that has been called Responsive Urban Environments. The Responsive Urban Environment Research Initiative looks at the city through the lens of ecosystem management. Ecosystems are complex adaptive systems that require flexibility and the capacity to respond to environmental feedback to cope with change and uncertainty. We want to design healthier, just, equitable, and acceptable cities for all of us, including the young child through the older adult. And the older adult has a number of special considerations that need to be addressed for the city and the built environment to be accessible and easy to navigate. So the collaborators from Drexel, assuming I can keep that slide up, include Adam from, and I'm going to be doing first names. We are a very cohesive team. Adam from the Office of Global Management. Adam is the principal investigator. Nicholas from the Westphal College, who is in digital media and is responsible for the virtual environment you are about to experience. There's myself from Biomed, and Gina from the College of Engineering and from Westphal in civil and architectural engineering. That is the Drexel team. The Politecnico di Milano team includes Mario from the Department of Mechanical Engineering, who also is engaged in the development of virtual environments, and Juliana from the Department of Architectural Engineering, who is working with artificial environments, the built environment, and older adults. So Virtual Shoes is going to use virtual reality to enhance safety and foster better design for older adults in the built environment. And to do this, we have begun to create virtual environments whose perception, that is the perception of the individuals who enter the environment, will be adjustable. So for example, if you look at this particular environment, you can see it through young eyes and hear it through young ears. Or you can see it through older eyes and older ears. The idea is that if designers experience the environment as an older adult would experience that environment, they will be able to design better for older adults. So this is the virtual environment. It is undergoing rapid development. So I have to admit, I have not been through the entire virtual environment myself, so we will experience it together. Maybe we will experience it together. There we go. So the idea of creating the environment was to create specific navigational issues that would impede successful navigation for older adults. So there is elements of light intensity contrast, from the windows bringing in light from the outside to the patterned rugs on the floor, to the stairs that you're about to see, where the contrast of light and dark may make the stairs hard to navigate. There are also noises such as the waterfall you saw. We are establishing a sort of an emergency signal that is produced with a certain frequency that I've discovered that I myself do not hear. In fact, there's a certain, I guess, return to my roots about my participation in this project. When I came to Drexel in 1984, I was brought in as a resident neuroscientist to help in the development of a software package for image analysis. And in this particular project, I play the role of the resident older adult, so I can experience these particular environments and be able to advise on how an older adult might deal with them. So there are a lot of different changes that will occur within the environment. We are planning to have a sequence of experiences. So we will be recruiting younger adult students. They will experience an environment as a student would experience it, as their age would experience it. We will then ask them, what are the hazards? What would be the design flaws? What are the problems that an older adult would encounter? We will then put them in the virtual shoes of the older adult so that they can re-experience the environment as an older adult would experience it. Then we will we'll inquire a second time as to what those hazards in the environment are. We will repeat this with a new environment that's being developed at the Politecnico di Milano at the moment. So we have two environments, one developed at Drexel, one developed in Milan. Students will experience this second environment, both as a young person, as they would normally experience that environment, and also as an older adult. And again, we will make inquiries as to what might the hazards be and how could they be dealt with appropriate design. And then as a final test to see if this virtual experience really makes a difference, really has an impact, the students will be brought into actual authentic environments where it is known that there are navigational hazards for older adults, and they will be given a third opportunity to show how they would redesign such environments to reduce those hazards and make the environment user-friendly for older adults. So that is our project at the moment. We are still involved in creating the virtual environments. The virtual environment from Drexel is almost completed. We expect it to be operational within a few weeks.
Thank you so much, Don. Next up, we have Dr. Ellen Handy from the School of Education.
Hi, everyone. Let me just share my screen. Okay, so the name of our project is the West Philadelphia Community Archivist, an age-friendly participatory heritage project. And so this project is looking at the preservation of history of the West Philadelphia High School, looking at the original building here, built in 1911, to the present day development and renovation into Westphal. This project is really interrogating community change through gentrification, displacement, and demographic shifting. So here we have example of what one may see when you go into, let's say, a home buying program such as Redfin. And when you pull up West Philadelphia High School, it is numbered at 2. And so part of our project is also interrogating the narratives that get told about historically African-American schools, particularly in the present day. And so this is one of the quotes that really anchors our work. It's a poem by Lucille Clifton. Why some people be mad at me sometimes. They ask me to remember, but they want me to remember their memories. And I keep on remembering mine. So this project, I want to kind of talk a little bit about how this project came about. So in 2019, we started a youth archivist project at West Philly High, engaging students since 2019 up until the present, and really thinking about the preservation of their high school. Many students at West Philly High do not know the history of the school, the rich history, particularly that started in the 1950s around the strength of the African-American community in West Philly. And so for the last several years, we've been working with the youth to kind of preserve the history digitally, also through, and I'll go to the next slide, through digital media, artifact preservation, and oral history. And the Alumni Association has had a kind of a more marginal involvement in the project. And so this opportunity with AgeWell was an amazing opportunity for us to think about how we could really center the experiences of our alumni in this work. We've done a lot with the youth so far. We got an award in 2021 for the Lindy Award for K-16 partnerships through the Philadelphia Higher Education Network for Neighborhood Development. We've published papers, we've presented at conferences with the youth. And so again, this iteration is really centering older adults. So these are our project goals. To execute an intergenerational participatory heritage project to explore and document the rich history of West Philadelphia High School, which has served as a pillar of the Black community since the early 1950s, to illuminate the voices of students, alumni, families, and teachers and staff and administration to push back against pejorative narratives about historically predominantly African-American schools, to build the capacity of our older adult community archivists to engage in scholarly endeavors that integrate new media and digital literacies, and also center their community cultural wealth and culturally sustaining pedagogies, and to inspire marginalized communities to become lead archivists dedicated to community preservation, innovation, and social justice. And so this part of the project, we're really excited. We have 5 dedicated alumni who are very active in the Joy Education Lab. We've just kind of started more of their curriculum development around building their research capacity through city training for IRB and beginning some of the early digital and preservation skills. And so part of what our focus will be with them this summer is to begin collecting some of the artifacts that they have at the high school and digitizing yearbooks from 1911. To the present day. And so again, it's to engage older adult alumni as community researchers in the Joy Lab, a focus on digital and archival preservation, digital literacies and oral history collection. We're hoping to have early October community event that will share our project. We are working on a virtual museum, but also want to have kind of an exhibit at the high school in the library. And then again, this co-design scholarly endeavors to really think about how to disrupt the, pejorative narratives of aging. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much to all of our grantees for presenting. We do have quite a few questions. I'll start with the few that are on the chat, and then we'll open it up to the rest of the group. The first, which was chatted privately to me, was, can you tell us more? Oh, sorry, Dee and Rachel from Age Friendly Ross Commons. Can you tell us more about the design charrette and what you learned about making Ross Commons a more age-friendly building?
So we actually changed our plans and have not done the design charrette just yet. And what we ended up doing was the symposium.
Sorry, I meant the symposium, excuse me.
Yeah. And at the symposium, one thing that I think has emerged for sure is that there's an interest in thinking about people's histories as part of their space. And thinking about their, writer's room is really predicated on lived experience and story, and how that drives, the future. And I think one of the things that we really got interested in together as a group was Kia and Sequoia's work, because of how they sort of help people to think about their histories as part of the story of their now and as part of the kind of aesthetics of their space. But I also think that that's kind of emerged as a newer idea for the group. And thinking about it, sort of bringing it really overtly into the space in a way. So one of the things we talked about were these memory boxes that people made as part of the symposium. And I think that's something that's kind of influencing us, even though we're thinking about auditing, we're auditing the space in terms of like, are there things people are going to trip on? Is the furniture correct? But I think there's also some conceptual stuff that's happening as well. Rachel, I see you turned your camera on. Do you have anything to add?
I was just actually going to add exactly what you were saying about we're continually auditing the space. And Writers Room is a program. We've just finished our 8th year. We've been intergenerational from jump. Our participants are 18 to 80s. And so as we moved into Ross Commons, we've been there, day in and day out. Even though we're on a programming hiatus, still folks are, coming and hanging out. And so we're able to see how the space is being used and what people are gravitating towards, and the need for chairs with arms so that people can raise and lower themselves, the need for good lighting, and the things that are already in place that are great, like the accessible bathrooms. But the building itself needs a lot.
But I would also say that part of the symposium was also the ability to spend a day with the community and watch how they navigated the space as they were working creatively. So there were there's some reflective data that I have collected from that engagement, because we were moving from floor to floor. The participants were creating things, but then they were going into a lecture room and then they were coming back out. So there was, I noticed a lot of things that I think are going to help us with the age-friendly audit at Roscommons as well. Sorry about the cat.
Thank you for that. Next question is for Dr. Hu. How can the park that was designed be implemented in our community or other communities? It's a truly amazing project.
Thank you for the question. I think the first thing is I want to figure out how to implement it in Chinatown, because right now it's still on the conceptual phase of the design. It's a students with the older adults from the community. They developed this concept together, but I want to bring it to the leaders of the Chinatown community, like PCDC or other nonprofit leaders, to see how to bring it to a reality. So there's still a long way to go, because this involves like funding and the agreement from the leaders. And I did talk to the leaders in the initial engagement of the community, and they actually do have a need in this. So I think there is a conversation going on. We need to facilitate it to make it happen. And after we bring it to Chinatown community and make it more I would say applicable, then I can think about how to bring it to the other communities. But definitely, I think the methodology we use is applicable to other communities as well. The co-design and the way we communicate with the community members and also the community leaders and organizations. So I'm still navigating all the stakeholders and try to figure out how to bring it to the reality. So we are at this stage. Then after this, we can move on to the other communities. Yeah.
Thank you. The next question was for Carrie Hutnick. How will you present your results, and will the Drexel community have access to them?
Yeah, I think right now the guiding principle of our project is co-creation. And so I think working as we do right now, Cameron is engaging in interviews and conversations with staff from different offices and resources at Drexel. And as we're doing interviews with residents of the community, thinking about how best to present and offer that information, knowing that a lot of staff, recommendations for staff might really be constrained by capacity and resources and the ability to implement some of those things. So how can we offer those outcomes and those findings in ways that maybe can be toward, Kate, you said, toward offered to administrative and representatives to increase resources where there might be need, and an interest and a need, and just a lack of funding or a lack of resources. How can we offer some of that information to folks who might be applying for grants or seeking to do further research? And also, I think, with some of the development that the West Philadelphia Promise Neighborhood is doing with the West Philadelphia Community Center, and partnering with other organizations, how might this information be helpful in terms of what they pursue and what they offer to residents, and how might some of this be offered to residents in terms of being able to further access some of the resources as well. So I think that how we present it will be co-creative with those that we talk to about how would the information be best offered and used and utilized within the possibilities that are available to you.
Sounds like a good plan. That's it for the chat questions. I'm gonna open it up to others to ask their, there's Ken.
Okay, this is a question for Dr. Alan Handy. Are you still there? Yay! I love the project, and it seems like it can't help but be wildly successful. Have you any projection as to a possibility of once you tackle West Philly to go to other environs in Philly?
That's a great question. Thank you so much. No, not at the time. We've been really hyper local at West Philly High. And one of the things that when we presented at the Philadelphia Higher Education Neighborhood Development Conference, we got the same question from a lot of folks, like, hey, are you thinking about expanding? And so at this time, no, there really isn't a larger vision for that. I mean, even just with this one high school, there is so much relevant like artifact. There's just so much. I mean, we have yearbooks from 1911, all kinds of artifacts, all kinds of photos. It basically tells the story of Philadelphia and, the first high school west of the Schuylkill River in, the memorabilia that we have. And so perhaps we're thinking about how we could potentially create some type of education curriculum around how maybe other folks could potentially kind of build this grassroots effort to have students, youth, and also the older adult members of the Alumni Association really active in the preservation, of their high school.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Are there other questions? Tiffany Bloom.
Thanks, Kate. And just want to thank you for inviting me to these opportunities. Just to give some context, my name's Tiffany Bloom. I am a manager for housing strategy with UPMC Community Health Choices, a mouthful, but we are the contracted insurance company for Medicaid services for people who need long-term services and supports in the community, whether they're elderly or disabled. And I really appreciate being part of these conversations to hear the different ways that Drexel is kind of addressing what we really focus on a lot is social determinants of health and how your zip code can say more about your health than your actual genetic code. And having these opportunities for engagement in the community is really key. And so I work specifically with a nursing home transition program, which helps to transition older adults who have been maybe stuck in a nursing home setting back to the community, and have really been thinking about ways to get those specific people more engaged in community activities so they build a network of informal supports around them. And definitely with some of these projects, would love to connect our community engagement team to these efforts to see if there's ways that we can support and collaborate to, help our particular participants. So just wanted to make that comment. I know Kate has my email, but I'll also drop it in the chat if anyone wants to talk more about certain involvement or just have more of a conversation. I'm always up for those types of conversations. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. We invited our AgeWell Collaboratory organizational partners to this as well. So we have a few on here, which is very exciting because they can hear what we're doing and we can learn from them and create new partnerships. Don, I see you have a hand up.
This question is for Dr. Alan Hendy. I would think that what you're doing is so important in terms of Philadelphia's history. Is there any possibility of interacting with the Atwater Kent collection that Drexel's taken on, that to make some of the artifacts that you're organizing and collecting part of that collection as well? I don't know whether that would make it more available to the general public or not, but that strikes me as an interesting possibility. And I was wondering if you'd thought about that.
Yeah, great question. So I once that announcement was made, I thought that was, really exciting that we would be in possession of that amazing collection. But I haven't in any way, talked to anyone or thought further about it. Again, I know that the kind of work that we do is so it's so personal, so hyper, and I'm hypersensitive to just the collection itself, and then honoring the wishes of the Alumni Association. And so we haven't gotten to that point. I think that once we launch our exhibit in the fall, that it could be a pathway for us to, be a part of a larger, potentially a larger collection. But again, I'm really intentional about really honoring, the wishes of the Alumni Association and how they want to have their history represented in what forms. But I do think that this, this partnership could be, something that we think about in the future. Thank you, Don.
Thank you. Don, we actually have a question for you. You're assisting students with learning about the older adult perspective. Are you working with older adults to be able to communicate their needs to young designers?
Well, we haven't done that intentionally at the moment, but that's sort of part of the future project. It's also, there's also a rather interesting element to this of, I guess, what one might think of as reverse engineering. And that is, every person tends to think of their own perspective as accurate. You see what you see, you hear what you hear, and you assume that's reality. But of course, it's not. It's an interpretation. And when your senses change, you begin to interpret things differently. So one of the things the virtual reality can do is not just make an environment, the perception of environment for a young person to be in the shoes of an older adult, but the opposite as well. That is, to bring those of us who are older back down and to the shoes of a younger adult and see how they perceive the environment. But you're right, that would be a good addition to this project, to think about better ways to communicate the changes, because as I said, you don't really think of them as changes, you just think of them as your reality. And that, I'll give you a really quick example. My son's doing electrical engineering, and he was looking at signal processing, and he asked me to listen to this signal, except I couldn't hear it. He could hear it. My wife could hear it, but I couldn't. That 10,000 hertz signal was non-existent. And that was sort of a wake-up call to me that certain things I can't hear. I can't tell when the coffee maker is done. I just cannot hear it. So making people aware would be the first step before you can have them communicate that altered perception.
Thank you, Don. We have 2 minutes left. We have one last slide. It is Shelby Slimmer is going to just do a small pitch for our AgeWell Collaboratory Student Network and say goodbye.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Thank you all so much for coming today. We really appreciate your time and your efforts in attending. As some of you may know, our AgeWell Student Advisory Committee actively provides feedback on college and university efforts from the student perspective. We are looking to assist with any projects or events related to promoting healthy aging, as well as volunteer opportunities, both inside and outside of the university. So if you're looking to recruit student members within your organization, please reach out to myself or Kate and we can connect, in addition to any opportunities internally at Drexel for our members. And lastly, we are always recruiting new members. Therefore, if you know any students with interest, graduate or undergraduate, they are welcome to reach out to me or AgeWell at drexel.edu. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. And we have a recording that we can send out to everybody, and we can also send the slides as well. And we'll see you soon.
Thanks for coming to today's Tuesday topic. Have a great day, everybody.